culture, and dharma. Every month, we conduct an event where we bring intellectuals, authors, and researchers to present their work. Those who would like to donate can find the link on our website, indicforum.org. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, where all events are streamed live. Please note that this event is being recorded. Our today's guest is Deepa Bhaskaran ji. She is a dedicated student of Hindu Dharma and Advait Vedant and the author of books Adideva, 25 Legends Behind His 25 Names, and Airavat Dharma Activity Book for Children. She shares insights on Itihasas, Puranas, Bhagavad Gita, parenting, and mental health through events, workshops, online platforms, and even her blog, making Sanatan Dharma accessible and meaningful to all. Professionally, she is a technology marketing expert who also offers life coaching for teens and young adults. Today, Deepaji is here to talk about her book, Adideva, 25 Legends Behind His 25 Names. This book is a beautifully retold collection of 25 captivating legends of Lord Shiva drawn from the Vedas, Itihasas, Puranas, temple lore, and even folklore. Rich in narrative and visually adorned with poetic verses and the temple art, this big book brings to life Mahadeva's many forms, from Nilakant to Tripurakant to Dakshinamurti and even Arunachal. These stories not only stir devotion but also subtly convey the essence of Dharma and self realization, making it a soulful offering for anyone seeking to deepen their connection with Lord Shiva. The audience can ask questions in the chat. At the end of the talk, we will reserve some time for questions as well. Let's hear more from the author herself. Deepaji, the floor is yours.
Namaste. It is a joy to share in this beautiful Saturday morning here in the US. There's nothing better than talking about Bhagwan, and that's something that I enjoy. And all of us, I'm sure, are in the journey of Sanatana Dharma to learn more and more about it. With interest of time, what I'm planning to do is this. I will start with a, kind of an overview of the role of Itihasa Purana in our tradition and what our gurus have said about it. And then I will try to shed some light on the various sources of Shiva Kathas and what do they teach us. So we'll go through a few of those 25 stories. And what I have tried to do is part of the stories. The stories are not all unknown, but I'm trying to bring out their connection to our life and to Vedanta and Hindu Dharma itself. So let's start with an introduction. By the way, before I go, I have chosen some names, but if there's something else that you want me to talk about, I will be happy to do that as well. So before we go in, as you all know, we have a name for our so-called religion. It's called Sanatana Dharma. We never had to define ourselves, but we called ourselves Dharma. And obviously, we have the four Vedas that were compiled by Veda Vyasaji, is what we are told. But very, very early on, even the Chandogya Upanishad calls our entire body of Itihasa Purana as the Panchama Veda, so the fifth Veda. There is a beautiful saying that the Vedas are like the Lord telling us what to do, how to live life, what is the truth about the world. So they are called the Prabhu Samhita. So they basically a Prabhu, a Guru or the Lord teaches us the Vedas, right? So that's how it comes. Or a evolved Rishi teaches us the Vedas. Whereas the Itihasa Purana, they are considered as a Sneha Samhita or somebody who really like Suhrit Samhita. So basically the same knowledge that's part of the Vedas, whether it's about the truth of the world, the truth of the creator, the truth about ourselves, as well as what is dharma, what is adharma, how to live life, what are the various stations of life, what are the values that we need to live by. whether they are the Samanya Dharma, that all of us have to follow, or whether there is Vishesha Dharma, that is what each of us, depending on our station in life, is supposed to follow. All of these that the Vedas talk about are also given through the Itihasa Puranas in a much more sweeter way. So the Itihasa Purana as a body is thus called a Suhrit Samhita. A Suhrit meaning the common word. Suhrit means somebody who means well for you. It could be a spouse or it could be a friend. And we tell each other, like we are going to do today, we tell each other these stories which contain pretty much the essence of what you probably read in the Bhagavad Gita or any of the Veda, the Upanishads, and you give it in a very very sweet form. So the Vedas are called the Prabhu Samhita and the Itihasa Purana are called the Suhrit Samhita. So when somebody, I'm not as much a scholar about the Vedas, but whatever I know of the Upanishads, I see them reflected very much in the Itihasa Puranas. That is why the Chandogya Upanishad obviously calls the whole corpus of our Itihasa Purana as the Panchama Veda. I was thinking about it. We are often called the Rishi Parampara, right? So we have the rishis who have brought forth the knowledge of the past, of the very ancient philosophies, the dharma, the rituals. They've brought it through the generations. I feel now today we are probably more of a Suta Parampara. The Sutas were the ones who took these in my mind, I'm sometimes think through this. We have such an enormous corpus of stories across not just Akhanda Bharat, but probably even beyond. And I kind of visualized maybe there were these army of Sutas they played a double role, as you know. They were charioteers, but they were also storytellers and bards. I kind of visualized them. They're probably going across the world and how much ever they could reach, collecting many of these stories, bringing them back, spreading it across in the world long before the internet. They were probably spreading it, and at some point they got compiled. Some of the good stories got compiled, some of them got collated, and that's how I believe we have these rich corpus of Puranas that have come down to us. So I feel it's as much the Vaidika Parampara, we are also the Katha Parampara. As much as we are the Rishi Parampara, we are also the Suta Parampara. So until today, that Suta Parampara has lasted, right? So we have generations and generations, and it's not just written books. The critical editions are fairly new. There were obviously some palm script manuscripts, but most of it has come through the Karna Parampara, as we say, stories narrated from generation to generation. At homes, obviously, our grandfathers, grandmothers telling a story, but also these kathavachaks, these harikatha exponents, these, in temple festivals or, during any of our festivals, conducting these kathas. That has been our tradition and that has come today until very recently. Even now, people are continuing to repurpose and kind of put it in contemporary language. And I also want to take a moment to give my gratitude to the recently departed Vivek Debroiji, whose work is just astounding. The amount of translations, complete translations are put out, which is a source for many of us. So, with that, I wanted to spend some time. What do the Puranas do for us? And why I I was a student of Advaita Vedanta. I was been, for 15 years, I've been studying under my gurus, but simultaneously I also was a big fan of the stories. And when I started reading the stories, I just felt that's exactly what the Gita says, that's exactly what the Upanishad said. And then it kind of, you start seeing that they are not at all different. They're just telling the story in a different way. So here is the progression I see, and obviously as we all are sitting here talking about Shiva Kathas, it demonstrates to us that the kathas are not just for children, because the kathas being the same, they reflect to us different truths as we mature, as we age, as we are looking for different questions in our life. We go through that progression. So they also they reveal to us different truths as we mature. Now, what happens? Firstly, when we are children, right, the Puranas are first just simply Kavya Shastras. They're full of emotion, adventure, drama, the story of the hero, the battle of the evil versus good. And it's just at a surface level, like my children are right now. They just love it. They want to know, like, why did they do that? That's not right. And, why did you should not have done that? So there's a lot of drama that goes around, which children get really captivated by. Then, slowly, as we mature and we start thinking of Bhagwan, we start developing some inkling of bhakti. Then the Puranas becomes Bhakti Shastras. They showcase the grandeur of Bhagwan. They showcase the Shakti, the Karuna of Bhagwan, the omniscience of Bhagwan. And through those stories, our bhakti becomes a little more and more mature in very gentle ways. And I'll tell you later why even greats like Adi Shankaracharya ji believe so. So they become so initially they were Kavya Shastras, now they are Bhakti Shastras. Then as we mature further in life and we start facing our own dharma sankats, right? Should I do this? What should I do? Is this right or wrong? Then the Puranas become dharma shastras. And even now, like you see a lot of people using references from Mahabharata, for example, to talk about like, oh, that person is being like Bhishma in the court of Draupadi Vastraharan. You talk about Karna, why was he loyal? So those characters, those stories become dharma shastras now, and they show us values. They show us the challenges of following those values. They show us different types of dharma, like what is a kshatriya dharma, what is purusha dharma, what is a stri dharma, and then you kind of start using that Puranas as your basis for developing your own moral ethics and a sense of your responsibility and sense of our duty. So now the Puranas have become Dharma Shastras. And then finally, it is very, very fascinating that after a point, we all become seekers, seekers of the truth. We might be embarking on our journey. In my case, it was Advaita Vedanta, but each of us may be going through our own philosophy. At that point, the Puranas have become Moksha Shastras. All of the teachings that we see in the Vedas, in the Upanishads, in the Bhagavad Gita get told through these stories. And there are enormous number of stories in the Puranas that talk about moksha dharma, moksha shastras, right? So for example, the conversations between Bhagwan and some bhakta, like in the case of Krishna, Sri Krishna, like in the case of Kapila Bhagavan, and so many others. Or it could be between a rishi and a student. Enormous number of stories, and fascinatingly, many of the moksha conversations are actually between father and son, husband and wife, and so on. And it's just it's amazing, king and a minister or king and a subject. You see the whole range of the Upanishad wisdom and the Gita wisdom being brought out through the Puranas in various forms. Not only, I thought initially that it was only all of these, the Gita, Uddhava Gita, Shiva Gita, Kapilopadesha, Navayogi Upakyana, and so on. But it's not true, because even small stories in the Puranas teach us some of the truths of the Gita. It could be, for example, the Sthala Puranas of Rameshwara, for example, where I found it was Karma Yoga. It was all about Rama teaching Hanumanji about Karma Yoga. So, what happens at this point is, along with the study of Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita and so on, if we study these Puranas and Itihasas, you can affirm, you can get more tangible messages through the study of these Puranas that supplement whatever we are doing with the Gita and the Upanishads. So this is a progression which is pretty fascinating. So, like I said earlier, just to summarize, Puranas are first like the Kavya Shastras, just drama. Then they become Bhakti Shastras, helping us develop bhakti. Then they become Dharma Shastra, teaching us very, very sweetly how to live our life, how to perform our dharma. Then they become a Moksha Shastras and really help us as valid truths as in the Upanishads or the Gita. So this progression has been known. It's not obviously, as human beings, we all know we all react better to stories than abstract teaching, which is why even in you see the Upanishads, a fascinating story of, for example, Nachiketa and Yama, the Shvetaketu situation. So everything is brought out as a story because as humans, most of us, there are some exceptions, most of us react better to learning through stories than through abstract concepts. So obviously, Mahatmas, our gurus, have recognized this. It was a few examples. The Swami Vidyaranya, for example, who is a great Mahatma who also obviously helped establish the Vijayanagara Empire, he gives a schedule of how should we occupy our day. He says start the day with, of course, do your Vaidika karmas, then do some Vedanta and some meditation and all of that. Learn, But after that, he says read the Bhagavatam, read the Ramayanam, read the Mahabharata. So he actually gives that as a prescription for our life. So including that every day, a little bit of that every day, which actually supplement whatever we are doing in our life otherwise. So all of that was the reason for me to take the study of Puranas very seriously, and it was not casual. As much as I learned the Gita and the Upanishads, I started spending as much time on the Puranas, and really with the intent of not just knowing the stories, which most of us do, but to really understand and for my own meditation, help it add to my understanding of the Gita or the Upanishads. So there are, of course, tons of shlokas about Bhagwan, Lord Shiva. We come to him, the hero of our talk today. There are, again, there are Pushpadanta who wrote the Shiva Mahimna Stotram. He starts out saying, there's a beautiful shloka in which he says, the greatness of Shiva is so much that even Saraswati, using the entire ocean as ink and using the Meru Parvata as the quill or the pen, using the entire sky as the paper, she cannot finish writing about the glories of Lord Shiva. I mean, you might think it's exaggeration, but that's the feeling we all get when we think of the magnificence of Bhagwan. And that is why the stories are enormous. So how do you contain it to, how do you pick 25 stories? I had to start somewhere. And, I had a publisher who said, put some limit to it because otherwise you'll never finish it. So I ended up picking the 25 out of thousands of names. Uh, when you look at Bhagwan's names, so there are several categories. The first category or no names are related to his Parabrahman nature, right? Like you are Parabrahman, you're the cause of the world, you're the one in which the world arises, lasts, and does the laya or the pralaya. That is one category of names. Those names are mostly meant for meditation, mostly meant for understanding the grandeur of Bhagwan. It's hard to write about them. It's more the Upanishad kind of content. The second category of names are about his forms and qualities. That again, all of us know about it. His form is, multiple forms are there, but we all have heard about it. How he has the Ganga, how he has the, Shashidhara, and how he has the snakes on his body, his Gaja Charmambara, is wearing the elephant skin, so on and so forth. Those again, they are meant for meditation, meant for worship, meant for puja. And then the third category of stories are his leelas, right? Like what he did. How did he, fight over evil? How did he bless his devotees? How did he teach something to his students? How he came as a guru form and so on. So those are the third category of names. So because I did have to pick those number, I chose the third category, which is about the situations where Bhagwan performed some leela and, kind of those were good for storytelling purposes. Now, most of you do know the many of the stories of Bhagwan. It's that we don't need any special introduction to it. But there are a few things which I've chosen in terms of when you look at the 25 names, there are three categories again, using the three. There are known stories, which most of us know. We have heard it since childhood. But I was surprised. I thought I was a reasonably knowledgeable since childhood. I've been reading, I've read many of the books. I've heard it in many of the kathas. But when I actually went and read the Shiva Purana or the Linga Purana or the Skanda Purana, I was astonished that this story had these details that I never knew about. So sometimes we think we know the stories, but actually when you go into the book itself, you learn a lot of those nuances which I never heard about it before. So those are the first category of stories, known stories, but some of the nuances of the original are not really known. So those are the first category. The second category, we know the names of many of these, but the stories are not well known all over India. So there may be some pockets where people know about it. So, for example, Nandikeshwara. All of us know Nandi Bhagavan. We know we have seen Nandi Bhagavan in all the Shiva temples. But most people don't seem to know the story behind it. Even people who are Shiva Bhaktas, they were when it's been a year since this book got out. So many people are saying, I obviously I pray to Nandi every time I go to the Shiva temple, but I never knew this story about Nandikeshwara. So you have those categories like Nandikeshwara, Chidambaram temple, which all of us know, but not many people know the story behind it, Mrityunjaya, and so on. That's the second category. And the third category was there are many names which are known at a regional level, but not widely known across Bharat. So, for example, Matrubhuteshwara in Tamil Nadu, Grishneshwara, Mallikarjuna. So these are stories, beautiful stories. Again, they are in the Puranas, but they are not well known across India. So these are the three categories of stories which I feel have been very important. Our ancestors kept them alive. They each of these stories they have associated temples, they have associated stotrams, they have associated Sthala Purana. So this happened here, that happened here. There are festivals associated with those stories. So these stories have had an enormous influence on the Hindu psyche, on the Hindu tradition, even on Hindu, obviously, as we all know, in the art forms that we have, whether they be any of our dance forms or sculpture or music, you see these stories have been the inspiration for all of these that we have today, that we call Hinduism today, right? So whether it be the devatas, the various devatas we have, the various culture, the worship traditions we have, whether that may be puja or havan or any kind of japa, whatever it is, they have a huge impact on culture, like I said, arts and crafts, arts and music and so on dharma, because we use them for our even for our some of our laws, the values that we follow, the rituals that we have, the iconography that we have. Even our language sometimes uses those, at least from Tamil, I know we use some of these languages very, very commonly for example, as a joke, in Tamil Nadu, we usually get asked that you all probably know this Meenakshi temple in Madurai, and the Sundareshwara is the husband, Shiva is Sundareshwara. But in Madurai, it's Meenakshi who rules. So in colloquially, we in Tamil Nadu, people ask, is your home a Meenakshi ruled home or a Sundareshwara ruled home, right? So it's become so much, and every normal person knows about this. So it's become these stories have taken, they're not some far stories, become part of our lifestyle, our conversations, and they have actually enriched us in various ways. Um, so all of these, have become part of the puja paddhati of the temples. So if you go to any of these temples, this is the day where, for example, this is the way Shiva Parvati wedding happened, right? This is the day when Shiva manifested as Mritya Kala Samhara Murti and destroyed Yama to protect Markandeya Maharshi. So there are all of these stories have a certain date associated with them, have a certain festival associated with them. So it becomes a fascinating, it's enriched us in ways that we probably take it for granted. But our ancestors until now have realized this and have kept this going. And even when if many of these kshetras, as you know, were destroyed, they were, obviously the temples were destroyed, but the kshetras lived on, right? So we have not had, any issue with the just because the temple went away, the whole tradition. Well, it's never been like that. I mean, Somnath, as we know, was destroyed like 7 times, if I'm not mistaken, and again it was rebuilt. So it's gone on for a long time, and
Uh, do you mean to like move the PDF like pages because we only see the first page?
oh, okay, sorry. I don't think I'll let me not share
If
it
you
for now.
want to, like, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I should have unshared it. That was not how. Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. So I'll show that when we come to those things. So this is the purpose of the Puranas itself. Is like I said, the Shiva Bhakti or Bhakti in general has been a big part of our tradition. Has created Hinduism to what it is today. Now about Puranas itself, just a brief word before we go to the stories. All the Puranas have, again, I'm not a dating expert, so I don't want to go into that. Like I said, I don't believe there was a time where somebody sat and wrote these stories. I think the stories were collected over many thousands of years, suttas going everywhere, collecting them, and then it was probably compiled at some point. With the Puranas, the main Puranas that I've referred to have been the Shiva Purana, the Skanda Purana, a little bit of Linga Purana, and then the Itihasas, right? Mahabharata, obviously, they have reference to some of the Shiva Kathas. So with that, with Shiva Purana, just specifically, I'll just mention it briefly. So this again, it's one of the multiple recensions are available. Thankfully, Vivek Debroy ji is the one who has brought it all together. I referred to mostly a book in Tamil because it was not available. Professor Debroy had not published it by that when I was writing it. Couple of manuscripts are available, and they've been put together. There was something in Kashi, there was something found in Mysore. So it has multiple chapters, many samhitas, and many of the stories, which I also mention in the book, is it's what is very interesting is the same story sometimes occurs in multiple sources. Like you could find them in like for example the Daksha Yajna story, right? All of you know where Daksha conducts the huge yajna and he does not invite Shiva and Parvati. That story, it appears in multiple places. It actually appears in Mahabharata also. Shalya Parva, if you remember, when Shalya does not want to be the charioteer of Karna, it is Duryodhana who tells Shalya the story that, hey, you should not be shy about being a charioteer. Long back in Tripura Samhara happened, and it was actually Bhagwan Brahmaji who was the charioteer. So there is a lot of connections that is brought in all the stories in Mahabharata, in the Devi Bhagavatam, in multiple, obviously in the Shiva Purana itself. The same story sometimes repeats in the same Purana. And I'll give you some examples of that later. It appears in the Shiva Purana, the Daksha Yajna, for example, appears in the Shiva Purana, in the Sati Kanda, as well as the Vayaviya Samhita. So it's very interesting because it is coming up with different points of view of the same story. So, for example, in the if you anyway, I'll go to that later. I'm sorry, I'm going too fast here. So whenever there is a variation that exists, I've mostly relied on the Shiva Purana. It's the locations are also mentioned in many of these stories. Again, there are some confusions. So you will see the different claimants for the same story. So we have, for example, this Darukavana story where the Bhikshatana incident happened. Many, Almora claims it. Dwarka, the Deodar forest is supposed to be this Dwarkavana. There's an Aund Nagnath temple in Maharashtra claims it. So you see a lot of this claimants. So it's also unclear where these things really happen. And finally, while the stories are there, we have this whole corpus of stories called the Sthala Puranas in our region. Many of them are in the south, mainly probably because a lot of them got destroyed up in the north, but several do exist even now. Each of those Sthala Puranas, what you will see is this. They have some connection to the Puranas. They will claim that. They will say this Purana mentioned it, but when you go to the Shiva Purana, Linga Purana, you don't see that. Skanda Purana has a lot of these stories. They have a lot of the Sthala Puranas recorded. But we also have some situations where, like in Chidambaram, it's not part of Skanda Purana, but it has been a line in the Skanda Purana has been elaborated into a Sthala Purana. So they are called the temple Mahatmyam. So we have Chidambara Mahatmyam for Chidambaram, we have the Setu Mahatmyam for Rameshwaram, we have Gokarna Mahatmyam, Sthala Puranam. So we have stories that have a seed in the Skanda Purana or the Shiva Purana, but elaborated further in that particular Sthala Purana. So those are, kind of interesting facts about the Puranas before we go into the stories themselves. I'm happy to take any questions if somebody has any questions right now, or Akshar, should we wait for till the end?
Uh, I don't see any questions in
Okay.
chat, but people feel free to ask your questions if you have any right now, or you can also paste it in the chat and I can ask it on your behalf.
Okay. Feel free to do that, okay? I don't want it to be a very long lecture, so Okay, so with that, let's go into a few of the stories which I thought we can start off with. And the reason I want to start out with the story of Tripurantaka, which most of you are familiar with, but the reason I had it was it has a little connection to Bhagavan Ganesha. So obviously, when we start, we want to have start with Ganesha. So why is this story is related to Ganesha? I'll come to that later. But Tripura itself is a very, very popular story. It occurs in many of the, in fact, it actually happens, it occurs even in the Vedas actually. So it's a Yajurveda Vajasaneya Samhita, if I'm not mistaken. So that itself, in the Shatapatha Brahmana, it's mentioned. So it's a very, very ancient story. And it's told with further variations in the Shiva Purana, twice in the Shiva Purana. It's also said in the Skanda Purana. And like I said earlier, it is mentioned in the Mahabharata where Duryodhana himself uses the story. It's told in the Bhagavata Purana. So you see this, and it's also in many of the, like for example, the Tamil Sangam literature. Why is this so fascinating? Is you can see it in multiple ways. It's at a simple level, it is a story of three asuras getting a boon from Brahmaji, and they set up these three cities, so-called cities, made of gold, silver, and iron. It doesn't matter these details, but those cities have the capacity to fly across the cosmos, and wherever they go, they at will they can destroy entire civilization. They can incinerate entire planets, right? They are so powerful that it's kind of unpredictable. It could be like a bomb that will explode anytime, right? So everybody, they kind of sets a whole I kind of think of it as like Star Wars, right? Like you have these Death Star or whatever that goes across and destroys planets. Something like that is happening. Obviously, it is the to stop them is impossible. So the devas, they all go to the go to Brahmaji. Brahmaji says, I can't do anything. I gave this boon. I can't do anything. But I did give a certain time where it's possible to destroy. When these three cities are aligned, then it's possible to destroy, but only through one arrow. So it can be that it's just one time, one like brief second that you have where you can destroy all three. Now that is like impossible. So basically, Brahmaji himself says the only person who can do it is Bhagwan. So the story, I've taken some poetic liberty with it, where Bhagwan is meditating and the devas go and wake him up. And Bhagwan says, and he wakes up from his meditation and says, "Sure, I'll do it." But the what I like about this is it's not Bhagwan's war alone. He's the commander, but the entire all the devas, all the rishis, all the creation comes together to make it happen. So you have them infusing this chariot with their strength. You have Gandharvas becoming horses and so on. We have Vishnu himself becoming an arrow with Agni at one end and Vayu at the other end. You have Brahmaji sitting as a charioteer. You have Vasuki, the snake, becoming the rope of the bow, and you have the mother Mount Meru becoming the bow itself, and so on. So it's a very fascinating. You see all of them coming together behind Bhagwan to make this happen. And then obviously the story in the Shiva Purana or other sources is that Bhagwan just, leaves this bow and it shatters all three of the Tripura, and he's called the Tripura Samhara Murti and so on. So it's a fascinating story. And it's been glorified in many, many, many places. Obviously, you have Pushpadanta, and Pushpadanta actually, everybody, right? Every bhakta has a sweet way of approaching the story. Yes, there is glory, but Pushpadanta actually says, do you need all this paraphernalia? You could have just burned them with your eye, right? The third eye, which can burn down anything. You could have done that. Why are you creating this big drama with having everybody come in with their bow and Brahmaji sitting and all that? You didn't do it, but you're doing it as a leela, right? You're showing the world that these are the lessons we take from it. So you may be, and even in, like, for example, at work, we may be very, very capable, but we can't do everything by ourselves. We have to bring in everybody to do it together, right? So there are stories we can take out of this. And obviously, there is a beautiful story. So this is the main story from the Shiva Purana or from the Mahabharata or wherever, right? But there is a Sthala Purana associated with it. It's a small village in today's Tamil Nadu called Acharapakam. Now, why is this important? Is because the story goes that Shiva, obviously the chariot is ready, everything is ready, Brahmaji is seated, the time is about to come. The three cities are going to align any time now. So everybody is like eager to shatter them and destroy them. Now Bhagwan gets into the chariot and Brahmaji tries to get the chariot to run, but it doesn't run. It stops. Not only that, you hear this huge creak as though the something is broken. Now they are all very puzzled because the person who built this chariot is Vishwakarma, and it's impossible for him to create something that creaks or cracks like that. So everybody, what happened? And people don't know why this happened. Is this some upshakun, right? It's like it's not supposed to happen. And then the story in this particular Sthala Purana of this small village is that Shiva realizes that he is the one who did not follow his own rule. So you all know the story of Ganesha's birth, where Bhagwan Shiva says, from now, no, nothing can happen without first worshipping Lord Ganesha, right? So this is the story we all know very well. So whatever we do, any puja we do, first we have to pray to Ganesha. Any job, any task that we start out, we are supposed to pray to Ganesha first. So Shiva realizes that I'm the one who gave that blessing, but I myself did not follow it. So I started the war without propitiating my own Ganesha. Now, so he's people are kind of like, why should Bhagavan do that? And then Bhagavan, the story is that Bhagavan invokes Ganesha, and Ganesha then laughs, and it kind of the chariot goes, and this happens, right? Now the story is that in that particular village in Acharapakam, that is where they claim that is where Ganesha was there, and he is the one who caused the axle. Achara means the axle in Tamil. So this is where the axle got broken, and Ganesha fixed the axle. So this is a beautiful story that doesn't occur in the Puranas, but you see the connection. There's the story in the Shiva Purana or multiple other sources, but there is a small sub story where this Ganesha connection is made, and that is a temple in Tamil Nadu called Acharapakam. There's a festival associated with this axle breaking and the Tripurantaka Samharam right there. So this is the way our Sanatana Dharma has used the Vedas as the corpus, the Puranas as the corpus, but have so many temples and festivals around that particular thing. So that is one story. I started out with it mainly because it brings Ganesha into the story. So here is I want to share a small photo of this particular, how this is depicted. I hope you can see it. If not, please let me know. So you see this beautiful sculpture. It's in a temple called Virat, and by the way, it's there in multiple places. I just found this very captivating. So you see this very detailed sculpture, which was created in probably anywhere from the 7th to 9th centuries, and later probably renovated by the Tanjavur Marathas later, much later. But you see this whole depiction. So you see Shiva with the bow, and there's Vasuki, which is the bowstring. You kind of see that. And then Brahmaji, if you see on the bottom right, you see Brahmaji sitting as the charioteer. And you see the three cities of the three asuras on the right, the three circles. And all the devas, everybody are surrounding Bhagwan. So this is obviously you see in many places, but it's quite fascinating to see that these stories have had a life. Like the stories have given rise to all of these sculptures and these songs and so on. And every stotram that you see on Shiva will mention Tripurantaka. The Ashtotra mentions Tripada. When you do the puja, we have a Tripurantaka stotra in the Ashtotram as well. So that is one story which I wanted to start with. Then we go into the second story, which is his other son. Now, this is a story that's very well known again in Tamil Nadu. We all know about Soma Skanda. People have heard about it, but the story again is very beautiful, and it also has some lessons for us. Soma Skanda expands to Sa Uma Skanda. So Bhagwan along with Sa, Uma, and Skanda. So this is a beautiful form that we'll also see in many, many temples. In fact, there are some beautiful Chora bronzes, which, let me show that while We are here. So the beautiful Chora bronzes you'll see, in fact, some of them are abroad now. They've been, like this one that I'm showing you here is in the Art Institute of Chicago. And you see this gorgeous Lord Shiva sitting with Uma and a very tiny little Skanda in the middle. So this is again from the Vijayanagar era, but it's, you see many Chora also have depicted this. So let's do that story. Let's look at the story now. So, as you all know, Bhagwan has a son. Of course, after Ganesha, he has this son, Kartikeya, Skanda, Subramanya, many names for him. The story is that Brahmaji obviously is doing creation. And how does he do creation? He uses the Vedas, the Pranava Mantram, and so on. The story goes that one day, Brahmaji is coming to Kailasha. And before, on the way, the little boy, Skanda, stops him. And he says, Brahmaji, where are you going? He said, I have to meet your father and then I have to go continue my creation. So Skanda or Kartikeya asks him, how do you do creation? And Brahmaji says, I do it using the Pranava mantra. Then Kartikeya asks Brahma, oh, really? Then can you explain the Pranava mantra to me? What does it mean? And Brahma is caught unawares. He's like, well, I don't know, not really, and all of that. So what happens in that story is Kartikeya says, then you're not, if you don't know the meaning of the Pranava mantra, you're not capable of doing this job. So you shouldn't be handling creation. So he grabs the Kamandalu and the Vedas and everything from Brahmaji and jails Brahmaji. So he puts Brahma in some so-called Kailash jail, and Kartikeya goes somewhere else, some other mountain, and he starts creating him. He's sitting there. Now suddenly, so for a moment, creation stops because Kartikeya takes away everything. The creation stops, and everybody is like, "What happened? How did creation stop? Babies are not born, trees are not blooming, saplings are not growing, and everything stops." So there is a huge shock in the system. So then Shiva divines that, what happened? It's Kartikeya. So Kartikeya and Uma, Parvati, go to Skanda and say, what happened? Why did you do that? So he says, this is what happened. I asked Brahmaji, what does the pranava mean? And he did not know what it meant. So I said that nobody should do it if they are not aware of it. And that is also a lesson for us, right? So whenever we do any task, we should understand it fully. We should have the knowledge about it rather than going in and doing it. That's a good lesson. We should have a thorough knowledge before we actually embark on some task, whatever the case may be, right? Especially if you're a doctor or if you're in charge of creation or if you're in charge of, building a bridge and all that, you better know what you're doing. If not, you cause damage to the whole, whatever you're intending to do. So that's a good lesson for us from a dharma standpoint. But then Shiva asked Kartikeya, okay, you said that Brahmaji doesn't know, but do you know? And Skanda says, of course I do. And Shiva says, okay, why don't you tell me then? Because I want to know how much you understand it. At that point, it's very cute. So little Skanda, as you saw, a tiny little boy, he says, if I'm talking about the pranava, I'm the guru and you're the shishya. So you should not be sitting alongside me. You should be sitting at my feet, and then I will teach you the pranava. So there is a beautiful, again, Sthala Purana in a temple called Swami Malai in Tamil Nadu, where Lord Muruga is sitting on the top and Lord Shiva is sitting at the bottom, very humbly bowing down like a Shishya does to a guru. And Muruga explains the nature of pranava there. So again, this is a beautiful story that if you spend some time on it, you see there are some lessons we can take for our life, and there are then the lessons about how you learn something. So even if it doesn't matter, age doesn't matter when you're learning. We can learn from somebody younger, and we still have to have a attitude of reverence and respect towards whoever is teaching this lesson to us. So that is a beautiful story of. So the story is, it's very beautiful as the family, right? So the father, mother, and the child, they are together in that particular thing. Okay, so that is the story of Somaskanda. Then I would like to go to, I won't spend too much time on it, but I wanted to go to the story of Uma Maheshwara, which all of us are familiar with it. The how sweet is that story of Shiva Parvati Kalyanam, right? So it's really really sweet. We all know the story how she was meditating. Narada Maharshi comes and says she is destined for Shiva, and she herself goes through a lot of tapas to. We all know that story, but there are a few things which I didn't know until I started, going into the Puranas very much. One is we all know the story about Mena, Parvati's mother. Mena herself had requested Mahashakti, Parashakti, to incarnate as her daughter. So she knows that it is Shakti who is incarnated as her own daughter, but still she has a like a very naive attachment to her towards her daughter's beauty. So she feels her daughter is the most beautiful child, most beautiful girl, and you see through the story in the Shiva Purana that Mena's attachment to the physical beauty gets excessive. I mean, it's nice, of course, everybody wants their child to be nice, beautiful, or well dressed, and all of that. But you see repeated mentions of Meena that my daughter is very beautiful, my daughter is gorgeous, she needs the she should be married to the most handsome prince, and so on. And this is exactly also a lesson for us that while it's important, of course, all of us aim for some kind of beauty, but that is not what is most important. And Bhagwan teaches teaches Meena. In fact, the Parvati story side, to me, I found it fascinating how Lord Shiva keeps coming and teasing Meena about it. Like he comes in the form of like a juggler or some street performer, and he comes to her, and she's like, "No way, I'm not going to let my daughter marry somebody like you." She has obviously heard about Lord Shiva, that Lord Shiva is looks like a beggar, is like all bhasma on his body, snakes, and is wearing some animal skin. He lives in this, godforsaken place, like full of, there's no comfort there. So she has heard about all of this about Bhagavan, and all the people with him are all these Bhuta Pretas, So she is like, how can my daughter, so beautiful, so gorgeous, grown up in such riches, how can she go and live with this kind of a person? So Bhagavan repeatedly comes to tease her and teach her that he is beyond. And you see many people come and tell Meena, like Narad ji comes. Many of them and come and say, no, don't look at his outside. Look at, his beauty, right? So this is beautiful. And we know about this whole story of, Kama comes, how Parvati goes, Kama Samhara. So he kind of burns down Kama. Then later, finally, during the wedding also, you see Shiva, he's playing his pranks on Meena because he wants to teach her that lesson. So he dresses up beautifully, as you all know, that wedding scene of Parvati Kalyanam. So all the gods, devas, all of them come there, grandly they're dressed. And even Bhagavan, for that particular day, he allows himself to be dressed by the Saptamatrikas. They say Saptamatrikas come and they change everything. Like it changes the jata into some crown, and the moon becomes like a crown. The snakes become jewelry. The Gaja Charmambra, the elephant skin and the tiger skin become glorious silken clothes. All of that happens. So he's actually quite well dressed and grandly dressed, and they come in the procession. But as they're nearby, everybody is seeing that glorious form of Bhagwan. But to Meena alone, he still appears as that beggar. So she is still like, what, why is everybody is saying he's gorgeous, but I'm only seeing all these rags and, all this, like snakes and skin and all of that. So she's not able to see that until then she realizes that Bhagwan is tricking her. Then she herself prays to Bhagwan, show me this beautiful form of yours because I need to see it. And then finally he blesses her with his Sundareshwara Swarupam, right? So the story there's a story there with how we should not get carried away too much by the external, especially when it comes to Bhagavan. You should not be looking at that. That is one story. The other story which I really like is in the same vein. You all know the story, so I'm not narrating in detail, but these learnings out of that story. So you know the story that Himavan takes Parvati. Parvati wants to serve Bhagwan, and Naradji tells her, go and serve Bhagwan. By that, you will get to marry him. So Himavan, the father, takes Parvati to the place where Shiva is meditating, and Parvati goes with a couple of friends, and then Himavan says, "My daughter wants to serve you." And then Shiva says, "What will I do? I'm a yogi. I'm a brahmachari, and I don't want the presence of women." So this is the conversation between Shiva and Parvati with Himavan in the middle is very fascinating because Shiva says, "I have no use for women here. I am a brahmachari," and he should have stopped there, but he says, "Women bring all kinds of prakriti. Women bring all kinds of attachment to the world and everything. So I don't want a woman to serve me, especially a princess like her." Now, Himavan doesn't know what to say to that. The father is kind of dumbstruck. He doesn't know what to say. But the Parvati, you see her wisdom. She comes back and says, Bhagavan, the moment you're saying you're meditating, the moment you're saying that you don't want women or want Prakriti or anything, you're already in the realm of Prakriti. So, this is again a lesson in Vedanta that we all probably have heard about. The bhavana, Advaita bhavana, the what is the world, what is mithya, we talked about the world as an illusion. All that is only should be at the intellectual level. You should, at the moment you speak, you're in the world. So there is a beautiful saying which we are told in Advaita Vedanta is Bhava Advaitam Sada Kuryat Kriya Advaitam Na Karhichit. So you have bhava of Advaita. What is the bhava of Advaita? Everything is Brahman, the world is a mithya, it's an illusion, and everything is only whatever we see is Brahman. All the names and forms that we see are, just our own creation, our creation of the mind, right? So this is the Advaita bhavana you should have, but you should not show it outside. Wherever you go, if you go around, and Swami Shivananda has a beautiful kind of an article about it. Wherever you go, if you go, "Oh, I'm Brahman, you're Brahman, nothing matters," that is fake. That is not how it's supposed to be. The moment you open your eyes, the moment you're interacting with the world, you're already in Prakriti. This lesson that we all struggle, every Advaita student struggles with this because we hear this and then we say, "Well, I have this world, what do I do?" This is exactly the lesson, that very subtle lesson that Parvati showcases to Shiva, that only when you're completely absorbed in meditation, yes, you don't have Prakriti. The moment you have opened your eyes, the moment you have needs, you need flowers or you need water, everything is in the realm of Prakriti only. So there is no need to say that you don't like Prakriti. And Shiva is astounded by that answer. He finds her to be very wise, and then he allows her to serve him. And that is where this whole thing happens. And then Kama comes, and there is a moment of, Bhagavan has a little disturbance in his mind looking at Parvati. And then he realizes that, and then he burns down Kama. And then the story goes. So I don't, you all know the story. So I would not like to elaborate on that. So that is the story of Uma Maheshwara. Then we can go into the story of, I want to take a
There are
little
some
bit.
questions. Do you
Yes.
want to take on? So, Pranshu Saxena asks, what is the concept behind Vishnu as cow and Brahma as calf in the story of Triparasura Sahara?
So I cannot recall on the top of my mind right now, Pranchuji, but I think there's a side story of Banasura, right? So I didn't write about that in the book.
Yeah, it's the story of Hari, the son of Tarkaksh, and he gets uh, that that pool created which can revive all the dead asuras. So the battle, when they start the battle, they keep on killing the asuras, but they keep on reviving. Though they say that even if we kill the cities, they will revive back. So that's where Vishnu goes as a cow and then Brahma as calf, and which is a very interesting analogy, they put there, taking Brahma as calf and Vishnu as cow, and then she drinks up the whole pool.
The pool, yeah.
So that
Maya,
was,
Maya Asura creates that pool. Yes, yes,
yes, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, yeah. I didn't write about that specifically here, but yes, yeah. I mean, there are, like we talked about earlier, there are all these side stories and branches that go for most of these stories. Yeah.
So
Uh,
generally, Brahma is shown as coming out of the Vishnu's Nabhi, right? And
yes.
I thought this was probably an indication where there is the another way of depicting the divine family, like Brahma as the calf and Shiva as the bull and the Vishnu as the cow there, on the higher scale.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, now that you mention it, yeah, absolutely. Okay, so
There's one more question by Sunil Kumar. Could you elaborate on the differences and commonalities in the legends around Shiva in Kashmir compared to, say, Kashi and the South? And how do you think this evolved over time and why?
I'm not aware of the stories. The stories are fairly the same, I think, but the concept of Shiva Shakti, there is a slight difference. I wouldn't want to go into that too much. What I feel from an Kashmir Shaivism, they consider the combination of Shiva Shakti, right? So they Prakriti, they give validity to Prakriti or reality to Prakriti. Advaita Vedanta doesn't, but I'm not too familiar to go into that. Their practices are a little different. They talk about the spanda that, the same thing that we do, like Manana, Nididhyasana, and Advaita Vedanta, they call it, I think, spanda, Vimarsha. There are some conceptual differences, but I don't think I would go, I know enough to talk about that. I took a course by Professor Sthaneshwar Timalsina, so I did see some areas where there's a lot of commonality, but there are some that are different. But even when they were different, I thought it was more around the terminology. So again, that is just my surface level understanding. So I would prefer not to go too deep into that. Okay. Okay, so the next story I wanted to talk is really around Dakshinamurti, because this is again, most of us are familiar with Dakshinamurti. We consider him the Adi Guru, but there is a story that comes in the book called the Sutta Samhita in the Skanda Purana. Now, again, I found that many people who know about Dakshinamurti don't know about the story. I knew it from childhood because I'd heard somewhere, but then I read up the Sutta Samhita and I found it very, very fascinating. Again, the reason I'm picking the story is because it has a relevance to our studies, our understanding of philosophy. So the story is that you know about the Sanat Kumaras. They are the mind-born sons of Brahmaji. So the four of them, they were created. Brahmaji created them and said, "I want you to get married and propagate the earth." But they said they were born with knowledge, high vairagya. So they said, "No, we don't want to do that. We want to spend our life on tapas and meditation and achieve the purpose of our life." So what they do is they go and meditate for a long time, but they're not able to get that moksha, or they're going to final realization, right? Something is stopping them from doing so. So they are saying, well, we need to go and get this knowledge. We need to have some guru teach us how to get over this obstacle and achieve our moksham. So they said, okay, obviously the Trinity is the place to start. Let's first start with our own father. So they go to their Brahmalokam, and what they see is Saraswati is playing the veena and Brahmaji is enjoying the music, and like not nothing meditative is happening there. So they are saying, well, what is this? We come to Brahmaji. Shouldn't he be immersed in meditation, immersed in meditating on the self, on the truth, on Brahman? Why is he like sitting and listening to some music here? That doesn't seem like Brahmaji is the right guru for us. So let's not go to him. Let's go to Vaikuntha and ask Mahavishnu. So then they go to Vishnu, and the even more surprising, because Vishnu is lying down in the Sesha, and Lakshmi is massaging his feet, and he's having a nice time there. So they are like, well, that doesn't seem right either. Why would he? You know they are expecting, what they are expecting is the guru should be dressed in like orange, maybe wearing something very simple, meditating, not indulging in any joy, that kind of stuff, where they don't see that in Vishnu is nicely dressed, probably having some nice food, I don't know, and then Lakshmi is massaging. So he says, well, that's not the right guru for us. I've heard great things about Shiva, so let's go to Shiva, because I've heard that he's a great vairagi. So they go to Kailasha. Now, what happens? They have this image of Sada Shiva as this great Adi yogi, absorbed in meditation, not bothering about his body, clothes or anything. But they go there and they're in for a huge surprise. They rush in, and what they see is Shiva, who's Adi yogi, is also Kameshwara. So he's actually in the is literally Parvati is sitting in his lap, and they're going through. They are actually in a state of bliss, so it's like really sensual scene in front of them, and they are taken aback. They're like, what? I thought Shiva was beyond all of this, like the sensual pleasures, and here we see is, he's like doing this. So they're taken aback by that scene, and they're very disappointed that all the three of the Trinity, they should be the gurus, they should be vairagis, but they are, indulging in these sense pleasures. So they are very disappointed. So they go back to some place in the earth, and they are kind of given up, and they are like, "Oh, let's figure it out ourselves." Meanwhile, in Kailasha, Shiva realizes what's going on with them, and he says, "I need to go and help them." So Parvati tells, "What are you going to do?" And Shiva says, "Watch the drama here." So Shiva takes the form of a very young monk, called Dakshinamurti. Now we call that later. So he takes this form of a young, vibrant youth, full of radiating with knowledge, and he sits under a peepal tree in Vatavriksha, and he sits there as a youthful brahmachari, and a huge banyan tree. This beautiful scene, I'll show you a picture later, but he's sitting there, and the Sanat Kumaras are drawn to him. Who's this young youth? He's shining with knowledge. He's shy. He seems to be shining with the Atma Ananda, like full of bliss. So they come and sit in front of him. They have a lot of questions, but this youth doesn't talk. He just shows the chin mudra, as you know, this chin mudra. He shows the chin mudra, and he is sitting there for well, we can take some poetic liberty. They sit there for a long time. And then what the story goes is that their doubts are completely removed. And then they realize, they have the realization, as a beautiful stotrams around Dakshinamurti, Chitram Vatatarur Mule Vridha Shishya Guru Yuva Gurostu Maunam Vyakhyanam Shishyastu Chinna Samshayaha. So there is a beautiful imagery in this shloka, as under the huge banyan tree, this young student is sitting, this yuva, Guru Yuva, Vridha Sishya, they are old Sanat Kumaras are sitting around him at his feet, and Gurostu Maunam Vyakhyanam. The Guru is not even talking. He's actually, no, no. The Guru is lecturing through silence, but Shishyas tu Chinna Samshayaha. All the doubts of the Sishyas are destroyed in the process. Now, this again, the story is quite fascinating. But if you remember, for example, in Adi Shankaracharya talks about in the Bhajagovindam, he has this beautiful verse: Yogaratova, Bhogaratova, Sangaratova, Sangavihinaha, Yasyad Brahmani Ramate Chittam, Nandati, Nandati, Nandatyeva. Now, what the Sanat Kumaras realized with the Chinmudra is, in you maybe these three fingers stand for our waking state, dream state, and deep sleep state, right? Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti, as we call it in Vedanta. These three things are happening all the time. It doesn't matter. But if you, the Jivatma, which is the you, usually the index finger, we say you. So if you attach to the big finger, the thumb, which is the Paramatma, it doesn't matter what you're doing in these three states. It's okay. You can, like Brahmaji was doing, you can listen to music, you can be like Vishnu and have nice massage, or you can be with Shiva and even have, relations, physical relations with your spouse. It doesn't matter, because you as the Jivatma are always connected to the Paramatma. That is what matters. The body, mind, and intellect can go through all of these experiences, but you can stay detached. There are countless stories in our Puranas around how you stay detached even in the middle of, all kind of riches. Like we have Janaka Maharaja, we have Kardama Prajapati, we have Agastya Rishi, so many who lived amongst all kinds of enjoyment and riches, but their mind was always attached to Paramatma. Now, this is the lesson from this particular story that the Sanat Kumaras take, we all have to take, is Yoga Ratova Bhoga. You can be in yoga, you can be in bhoga, you can enjoy everything. You can be Sangaratova, you can be with a lot of people, or you can be all alone. It doesn't matter, as long as your Ramate Chittam, as long as your thoughts are aligned to Brahman, you will be in bliss anyway. It doesn't matter where you are, you'll be in bliss anyway. That is the powerful story of this particular Dakshinamurti, which I think is quite fascinating as, people of any trying to follow any kind of sadhana, any kind of a path that we are following. Do we have time for one more story, or let me know?
Haji, we are almost close to the time. Maybe we should keep some time if anyone has any question.
Sounds good. Let me just stop with one a thought. So,
Sure.
as I mentioned, these stories are all quite powerful in terms of the lessons they give us. And there is a lot to learn. When you read, like I said earlier, when you're studying the Gita and then when you learn this, you see the commonality. So that's a good way to take the takeaways are very good. But I do want to affirm that there is a this is the Puranas the easiest way to develop bhakti. We sometimes we are so focused on the learning and the messages that we lose the fact that this is how do you develop Shiva bhakti or Vishnu bhakti, whatever it is by repeated meditation on the stories, repeated contemplation on the stories. That itself will attach us a lot to Bhagwan. And I want to end with a shloka of Adi Shankaracharya in the Shivananda Lahari. It's the second or third shloka. It's beautiful, and I'll tell you what he says in that. He says, गलन्ति शम्भो त्वच्चरितसरितकिल्बिषरजो धलन्ति धीकुल्यात् शरणिषु पतन्ति विजयताम् दिशन्ति संसारभ्रमणपरितापोपशमनं वसन्ति मच्छेदो हृदभुवि शिवानन्दलहरीम्. The meaning goes that Galanti Shambho Tvacharita Sarita. When I am reading the river of your stories, so the stories are compared to a river. When I'm learning or meditating on the river of your story, Charita Sarita, what does it do? Those stories enter my heart and Kilbisharajo Dalanti. All the impurities of my heart are cleaned by this river. Then what it does, Kilbisharajo Dalanti Dikulyat Sharanishu Patanti Vijayatam. It follows into all the crevices of our heart. If you think of our physical heart, it goes into all of those cells and arteries and veins. And Galanti Samsara Paritapopashamanam. We face so many problems in our life, as you know, the Adideva, the three types of tapas, people problems, world problems, our own self-created problems. All of those create heat in our minds, right? We all feel the tension, the stress. We get agitated, we get anxious, and that creates heat in our mind, the tapa. Now, this river, what does it do? It goes into our heart and it is cools down all of this. And then finally, the Paritapopashamanam Vasanti Macheto Hridabhuvi Shidvan. And then what happens? It has cleaned your impurities. It helps you cool down all the problems we face in the world. And finally, a kind of gentle waves of Shivananda are born through the stories. So, what I would highly recommend to everybody is to make the stories a part of your sadhana, in fact. There are plenty of resources available, including pitch for the book. So, including this book, like I mentioned, but plenty of other resources available. Spend some time on reading them, enjoying them, as well as meditating on them. They'll become part of our psyche and help us face the world, be purer, be kinder, be more loving, but as well as all the time with the Shivananda. So I'll stop here, and I would love to hear any stories or any additions from all of you, because this is a journey for all of us. So thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you, Deepa ji. Any last question from the audience?
Yeah, I had a very a generic kind of question. Deepa ji, is there any, do you have any thoughts on how to integrate the Puranic lore and these stories into the school curriculum? Or is it possible?
I think we should either. It's the biggest tragedy of our times that we have missed out on. Imagine, right? Like, we are creating new curriculum for so many. We have this immense lore that we have across Bharat, and frankly, even in other traditions. I don't want to, many of you know there are enough traditions. Not bringing them for many purposes, right? Critical thinking, for literature, for drama, for even for learning about geography, for example. I mean, there are so many applications of our Puranas into our thing, and it's I think it's a huge tragedy that we have not integrated into the school system. thankfully, for those of us who grew up with like Amar Chitra Kathas or home-based storytelling, we have got it. There are enough material, but if we wanted to go to the masses, we wanted to go to everybody, it has to be part of the school curriculum. So let's hope that happens as more and more, we see some changes. I know recently there was some, Sanjay Sanyal had announced a little change in the curriculum. So hopefully we'll see that. But yes, at least at home, I would suggest making this part of, our reading habits every day. So, for example, at home, I have children, slightly older children now, but we have the lifetime subscription of Amar Chitra Katha. We buy all of the usual stories that have been published recently. We have most of the Bibek Debroy versions, though they are pretty heavy. They are all the big books. But yes, I would highly recommend we do that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Deepaji, for sharing your time, insights, and deep devotion with us today. Through your work, both as a student of Sanatan Dharma and as the author of this book, you have brought to light the timeless beauty of Shiva Kathas with clarity, reverence, and warmth, I must say. Your dedication to preserving and sharing the wisdom of our sacred texts is truly inspiring. On behalf of everyone here, we express our heartfelt gratitude and wish you continued success in your journey of dharma and storytelling.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you. And thank you, Sideshji, and to the team for having me here. Appreciate it. Om Namah Shivaya.
I thank all participants for attending this event. Recording will be available on our YouTube channel. You can register for future events on our website, indicforum.org. See you in the next one. Thank you, everyone. Namaste.